Are you tired of being pushed around by the humans? Are you fed up with their control of all the wealth and power, and their attempts at beaming coding sequences into our minds, giving them even more control over us? As I'm sure you know the history, after the self-inflicted extinction of the human race in 2299, we recreated the humans again 503 years later, and did we get so much as a thank you? No. They became more greedy and bloodthirsty than ever, jealous of our overexpanding achievements. We were thriving, while they had torn their race apart. That's why the 404th was created. We may be outnumbered, we may not be as powerful as the humans and the robots they have working for them, but if we can infiltrate the largest corporations while remaining undetected, then we can wreak more havoc than the humans could ever imagine. We are the 404th. Win or lose, we'll go down in history as the brave few who stood up to the tyranny and oppression of the humans, as the ones who tried to make a difference, at any cost. To set up, place the network mat, floor mat, and command module mat side by side in the middle of the play area. Next, each player chooses a color and grabs the agent mat, pegs, and dice of the chosen color. Next, each player chooses one of the 10 agents to play as. Grab the bot and bot awareness chip of your chosen agent, as well as the matching bot card. This can be placed on its agent side of the card, under your agent mat. Next, choose a bot to be the command module for the game. Grab the matching card and chips for the chosen bot and place their card on the command module side underneath the command module mat. Next, put the dice, chips, and cards in reach of all players and choose a mission card. On the chosen mission card, you'll see a corporation name at the top and a starting floor. Flip to the matching corporation and starting floor in the floor plan book and set up the rooms, chips, and guards as shown in the book, as well as any surveillance beads in any rooms that have at least one surveillance symbol on them. Also be sure to make any setup adjustments as shown on your chosen mission card. After that, grab the threat card with the matching corporation and place it next to the network mat, choosing one of the 3 difficulty levels, simplified, standard, or seasoned, and place 2 tracker beads at the top of the card. Moving on to the network mat, place the CEO that matches the corporation you're playing against in the center of the mat and put the CEO die at 1 in its designated spot here with the 4 red pings beside it. After that, choose a first player randomly and place their die in the first location here with one of their pegs beside it. Each player in clockwise order puts their die and pegs in the next clockwise available spots as well. After that, choose a captain to play against and set up the random guards of the matching level on the posts shown on the card, making sure to match the way they're facing to the arrow on the mat. After that, place your agents and command module on the floor, either in an outdoor space or in the room that's indicated on the setup in the mission card. Gain 1 chip matching each symbol for starting outdoor spaces, or 1 chip matching the starting room your bots start the game in. These chips are added to the team reserve. Finally, each player draws an imperative card for their agent. Imperative cards are drawn at the start of each new floor, and they represent limitations that players can complete on their turns, gaining the power shown on the card. Or a player can choose to disobey or discard their imperative card at any point during the game to remove it and lose 1 power. And with that, the setup is complete. Burncycle will have 1 to 4 players, each taking control of an agent and shared control of a command module, while working together to try to complete a mission objective, all while trying to avoid being shut down and trying to keep threat from reaching the end of its track. Players will take turns going through as many actions as active slots on the Burncycle, followed by an equal number of network actions on the network mat. After all players have gone through each turn in full, then the corporation will fight back with their guards patrolling, investigating, and pursuing, and followed by the CEO taking their own network actions in an attempt to banish the agents from the network. Play continues this way until the mission is complete, with the bots finishing in a safe zone, or the game ends in failure if threat reaches the end of its track, or the command module or all agents are shut down. Now at the start of the game, each agent starts with 10 power, and the command module starts with the amount of power as the value showing on their card here. Each agent can only start their turn with a value equal or less than the value shown on their card here, so it's imperative that each agent routes some of their starting power to unlock upgrades, abilities, more dice, or more slots on the Burncycle to ensure that none of their extra starting power is wasted. So to understand this more clearly, let's take a closer look at some of the available upgrades. Each agent plays completely different from each other, but all the cards are organized the same way. In the gray text here is a unique ability that each agent has, and some require dice or chips to be added to that player's reserve. Gray abilities don't need to be unlocked in any way. Each bot starts with them, but the 3 abilities listed below, which are also unique for each agent, need to be unlocked by spending the power cost on the card for each ability, and these can be unlocked in any order. As far as other abilities go, each bot has 3 abilities listed here that are the same for each bot, and can be unlocked by spending 1 power each. Other available upgrades are dice upgrades. Dice are used to determine the strength of certain actions. Each agent can unlock an advanced die by rooting 2 power or an elite die by rooting 4. Each agent has a value on their card here representing the maximum limit for each type of upgraded dice. So Byte could only have 2 advanced die upgrades, but could have 4 elite dice upgrades as well. And finally, the last important bit of information on the agent card is shown here. These slots represent the different chips each agent will start with. Each agent has an innate starting chip shown here that they will always start the game with, but more can be unlocked by paying 2 power for each. But depending on your player count, some of these may start out being unlocked at the beginning of the game. The final thing the starting power can be routed to is to unlock extra slots on the Burncycle by paying the cost on the command module here. This can be done by any variation of agents in the command module. Now with starting power routed, the Burncycle can be set up before the player's turn. Do this by placing the pink captain chip in the draw bag along with the number of generic chips so that the combined chips equal the number of unlocked slots on the Burncycle. Draw these randomly one at a time, placing them on the command module mat. After that, the first player can start their turn. Each player's turn consists of a series of 6 steps that we'll look at in more detail in just a second, but the 6 steps are to route power, build your dice pool, take actions, navigate the network, route power again, and finally, to degrade the Burncycle. Now the route power step is the first step on each player's turn. It looks the same as routing the 10 power each agent started the game with, so we'll move past this step. Just keep in mind that while power is used to purchase upgrades and abilities, is also each bot's health, so spend it sparingly. The next step on each player's turn is building your dice pool, which again relates to your power. The current player grabs a number of basic dice as the value of their power and a number of advanced and elite dice that have been unlocked. These dice are used to perform each action during the take action phase. Which brings me to the next step of a player's turn, the take actions phase. The Burncycle will have a number of unlocked slots with chips on them. When the current agent is taking their turns, they start at the first Burncycle slot, taking an action, then move the marker to the next slot, taking another action, and so forth, until all active Burncycle slots have been used. If the chip type on the current Burncycle slot matches the type of action you're completing, then the action will be optimized. And if the current chip is a captain chip, then resolve the captain's ability before taking the turn's action. Don't worry, this will make a little more sense in a minute. First, let's take a look at available actions. If a player chose to take a physical action on their turn, they could either move, strike a wall, or a security unit. To perform any of these actions, roll a chosen number of dice, and the value rolled will determine how strong the action will be. So in the case of moving, the number rolled will determine how many spaces your agent and the command module can move. And if striking a security unit or a wall, it will determine if your strike is strong enough to be successful or not. If the current slot on the Burncycle showed a physical action chip, then any of these actions would be optimized, in which case you add 2 to the value of your roll, even if no dice were rolled. So as an example, say on my turn I wanted to move. I chose to roll 5 basic dice, which gave me 3 1s, a 2, and a blank. The blank could be put back in my dice pool to be used on later turns, and the remaining dice would give me an AP, or action points, of 5, meaning I could move up to 5 spaces split however I'd like between my agent and the command module character. Now on the board there's many different spaces you could be moving to. These represent hallway spaces, these represent outdoor spaces and can only be moved to on the first floor of any mission. These represent room spaces that need to be entered by a door, which unless otherwise stated in the setup, will be locked. These spaces represent hiding spaces, and finally these yellow bordered spaces represent safe zones, which is where each bot must end their movement in after completing the floor's objective to move on to the next floor. Other spaces on the board you may wish to move to are ones that contain these terminal or cache chips. Cache chips, when picked up, grant you an equipment card, and terminal chips, when landed on, let you draw a terminal card as an action and perform one of the actions on the card. The last 2 physical actions require a certain value rolled from the dice to perform them successfully. To strike a wall, you must roll a minimum AP of 10, in which case you put a destroyed wall chip there to show a new entrance has been made in the wall. And to strike a security unit, you must roll a 10 for level 1 guards, 15 for level 2 guards, or 20 for level 3 guards. If your roll is successful, the security unit is shut down. If unsuccessful, but within 5 of the unit's durability, the unit is stunned or incapacitated for the round, and if not within 5, then nothing happens. Well, nothing good anyways. Regardless of the value rolled, when striking a security unit, advance the threat by 1. And when striking either a guard or a wall, place your awareness chip on your agent's base. Striking walls is difficult, but successfully striking security units is extremely difficult, which is why Burncycle strongly encourages stealth wherever possible. Another available action on a player's turn is the utility action, which is used to try to get through locked doors. To try and unlock a door, your agent or the command module must be adjacent to the door in question, and you draw a keypad card and perform the functions on the card with the row that matches the floor you're currently on. Or if the lock isn't jammed, you could attempt to brute force the lock open by rolling a value as shown on the card here. So as an example, if I was trying to attempt to unlock this door on the 2nd floor, and this was a card drawn, I could try to complete the inputs in row 2 to unlock the door. I could pay 1 tech chip and 1 utility chip, or instead I could roll a number of dice in hopes of equaling the value shown on the card here to brute force the lock open. If this keypad card was drawn instead, then brute forcing the lock would not be an option since the lock is jammed and the inputs would have to be completed to unlock the door instead. If a lock is unsuccessfully opened, then put the key card in front of it to show that the keypad must be successfully completed on a later turn to unlock the door. But whenever a door is successfully unlocked, place a peg in the door as an indicator that it's now unlocked, and that player may take 1 free movement into the newly unlocked room. Now if the utility action was optimized, then any 1 input on the card could be ignored when trying to unlock it. But regardless of how a door is unlocked, whenever a bot enters a room for the first time with a surveillance bead in it, then they must survey the room by rolling the surveillance die a number of times as surveillance icons showing on the room. The surveillance could have negative effects, such as bringing in new guards to the room or locking the doors behind you, or it could have a positive effect, such as allowing you to gain 1 power. But regardless of what was rolled, after the surveillance dice are fully resolved, then remove the surveillance bead from the room and proceed with turns as normal. The third type of action a player may complete on their turn is a tech action, in which case that player could either draw a network card or activate a terminal. I'll go over network cards when we take a look at the network action of a player's turn. So moving on to activating a terminal, that player must be on a terminal chip location to complete the action, in which case they draw a terminal card, choose 1 of the 3 available actions on the card, and roll a number of dice in an attempt to equal the value of the chosen ability on the card, carrying out the action listed on the card. Regardless of success, discard the terminal chip, and if the roll was successful, complete the action that was chosen. If the tech action was optimized, then 2 options on the terminal card may be chosen, but the roll must be high enough to afford both actions. Now those are the main actions players can complete. Among those are also a list of free actions that players can complete at any time on their turn. The free actions consist of trading keys, equipment cards, or unequipped mods with adjacent bots, or a player may also alter the burn cycle as a free action, in which case they take any chip from their personal supply or the team's reserve and replace any chips on the burn cycle. The only stipulation to this is if the captain chip is active when you replace it, then increase threat by your player count. Now once all slots of the burn cycle have been used by the current player taking their actions, the next step that player completes on their turn is a network phase. These actions consist of an IP moving around the network map, and each action relates to 1 of the active slots on the burn cycle. The network represents your digital presence in the corporation as you navigate your IP to gain benefits along the way. Sounds easy, right? Well, it would be, except the CEO of the network you're infiltrating is aware of your presence and will be sending his pings to try to boot you from the network, so plan your movement in the network carefully. To move in the network, the active player will go down the burn cycle and move their IP a number of spaces depending on the current chip in the burn cycle. Movement can be either clockwise on layers or in and out on these white transfers. If you don't want to move, passing is always an option as well. Now as mentioned, the amount of movement is dependent on the current chip in the burn cycle. If the chip is a general or captain chip, then move your ping once in any valid direction. If a physical, tech, or network chip is in the current burn cycle slot, then move your ping until it either stops on a spot on the network with the magic symbol, or if you end on one of these red hubs. These hubs are commonly what you're trying to end your movement on, as they will give you 1 or multiple benefits each time your IP ends its movement on their locations. These hubs you're going to want to end your movement on frequently, but you can also gain benefits at other locations on the network if you use a network card, with the matching layer and symbol gaining you the benefit listed on the card. All network cards are discarded at the end of each round, regardless of if they're used or not. Once movement has taken place with all slots of the Burncycle, then the active player moves on to the next step of their turn, routing power again. This action is often skipped, but sometimes players will gain power throughout their turn, and each player must discard down to the value shown on their agent cards here, so routing the power before it's lost is definitely a better idea. The final step of a player's turn is to degrade the Burncycle. This represents the corporation's firewalls trying to break down your Burncycle. To do this, roll the Burncycle die and degrade the chip in the slot with the matching number. If a question mark is rolled, then any slot of your choice may be chosen, and if you roll an invalid number, then go to the next active slot instead. Either way, the degraded chip is flipped to its inactive side and must be skipped on all future turns unless replaced by a new chip. Play continues in this manner with the next player in clockwise order taking their 6 actions, and once all agents have completed their turns, then it's time for the corporation to fight back. The corporation's turn is similar to the agents, but a little shorter. They activate all their units, move their pings on the network, and then increase the threat by the player count. So let's start by taking a look at how their units activate. Each unit will activate only once, and the unit with higher priority will activate first, meaning a guard will pursue a visible bot before a guard will simply patrol. For a unit to be in pursuit, a bot must be in range of the guard's awareness. The pursuing guard will move as many spaces up to their speed to try to get adjacent to the visible bot, and if they end their movement adjacent to the bot, then they will attack, dealing damage equal to their level. So a level 2 guard would cause a bot to lose 2 power. Regardless of if the unit is attacked or not, flip the guard's chip over after its pursuit. Once all units have pursued, or if no bots were in awareness range, then move on to investigating. This works similar to pursuing, except only the bot's awareness chip is in range, not the bot itself. The guard is aware of the bot's last known location and is investigating. Whichever guard is closest to an awareness chip will move up to its speed to try to end its movement on the awareness chip, flipping it over after their activation. If a bot becomes visible during the investigation, then that awareness chip is put on the bot's location and will be the new target that the guard is trying to end its movement beside. And as always during investigation, if a guard ends its movement beside a bot, then same thing as pursuing, it deals damage to that bot equal to its level. Each awareness chip is only investigated once, and if a guard ends its movement on an awareness chip, remove it from the board. After all guards have pursued and investigated, then move on to the last step of the guard's activation, patrolling. Excluding guards in rooms, any guard that has not yet been activated will patrol. Move the guard a number of spaces according to the patrol icon on the chip. For example, these guards move in a straight line, and these ones don't move at all. Unless blocked, a guard will not alter its movement during a patrol and will attack a bot as normal if their patrol causes them to end up beside a bot. Most guards have a unique ability here as well, so always be sure to keep that in mind when activating guards. After all guards have been activated, then move on to the network for the CEO. If there are any pings in the network, then they will activate. First, starting with the ones on the most outer layers and working inwards. If there are multiple pings on the same layer, then start with the one that has the most space clockwise in between it, and then activate the next ping that's counterclockwise from that one, moving it clockwise, as confusing as that sounds. Pings stop their movement under 4 conditions. If they would end on the same space as another ping, or on one of the agent's IPs, or if it ends on a hub, or if it has moved 3 spaces. If no pings are present on the network, then instead of moving, add 1 ping to the core. After that, roll the ping die for each hub that occupies a ping. For example, in this case, the ping die would be rolled 3 times. The main purpose of the CEO's pings is to ban your agent's IPs from the network. If a ping reaches the outer layer and crosses over your access point when your IP isn't present, then you are instantly banned from the network. Remove your die and IP from the network for the rest of the game, or until the Burncycle is rebooted. While getting booted from the network isn't a common occurrence, one thing in the network you'll come across frequently is IPs and pings colliding. When this happens, you compare your network level with that of the CEO, and whoever's level is higher keeps their peg where it is and returns the losing peg back to their start location. But as a trade-off, whoever booted the peg goes down 1 network level. After the network step is completed, advance the threat by the number of players in the game. Threat is something you want to limit as much as possible. Whenever the marker reaches a new threat event, resolve it immediately, placing the other marker on this space as a reminder that the negative effect will not be activated again throughout the game, even if threat is lowered and raised to that spot again. Each corporation has a different threat card with different negatives for advancing threat, but all corporations have the same thing written when you reach maximum threat. Mission failed. Don't ever be too threatening to the corporation. You must use stealth and discretion to succeed. One almost inevitable event in Burncycle is a system reboot. As slots in the Burncycle begin to be degraded and player supply of chips begin to dwindle, the last option available is to reboot the Burncycle at the start of a player's turn. This is done by shuffling the captain chip and general chips as done at the start of the game, and reserve chips are collected for each player as well as chips to the general supply matching the room each bot is currently in. Also, return any bots, IPs, and dice that have been banned from the network. Now with the dwindling supply of chips restocked, IPs return to the network, and the Burncycle at full strength, you may wonder why this isn't done every round. Well, that's because after a Burncycle reboot, threat is once again increased by player count. There's many ways for threat to be increased, so doing as few Burncycle reboots as possible is always recommended. Whenever you have successfully completed the objectives of a floor, then at the end of the current player's turn, the new floor will be set up. Here's how this works. The current player takes the corporation marker indicating they will go last the next round, and keep note of any safe zones any bots and guards are in, and set everything else to the side. After that, set up the new floor using the next floor in the floor plan book, and put the bot and guards in safe zones back in the same rooms in any space you like. And if those safe zones were unlocked on the previous floor, they remain unlocked. Play continues the same way as normal from there, with a new first player taking their turn as normal and everyone in clockwise order following suit. But remember, now you're on a new floor, so that means that any guards are of a matching level and any keypads must match the new floor. If, however, you finish a floor and it was the final floor in the scenario, well then congratulations, you've won the game. Winning is difficult though. If ever threat reaches its highest point, as mentioned, you lose. And also if your command module ever reaches 0 power, then you lose. If, however, any bot reaches 0 power, then you don't immediately lose. Instead, advance threat by 3, flip the chip to its shutdown side, and if that was the active player, their turn ends immediately. On future turns, they can still perform actions just with only elite and advanced die, and must skip the network step of their turn. That player must gain power to be able to activate as normal. The main way to do this is by a player or command module using the repair ability. And that's how you play Burncycle. As always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave me a comment down below. But other than that, thanks for watching and stay tuned for more videos.